Hello, Dr. Mike. Welcome to this Tea Talk.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, especially to meet with a fellow classmate and TWU alum.
Oh my God, yes. And we have so many memories,
Hmm.
great ones. But beside everything, I know you, but for our audience watching us from all over the world, I would like to tell us a little about yourself, please.
Sure. My name is Dr. Mike Coleman. I have a PhD in family studies from Texas Women's University. am also the president of Hearts and the Family, which is an online resource for men and families going through or dealing with heart disease. And that was founded as an extension of my research that I did at Texas Women's University. Um, and I am the father of two boys. I've been married for about 32 years, and that's uh, that's a little bit about me. Does that give you a little background there? Or?
Yes, yes. And like when you mentioned, like, again, you have so much in yours, and it's always an honor knowing you as a person, as a colleague. But at the same time, your research is quite fascinating because
Mm.
when you talked about the heart, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
as much it is, I don't know, it is complicated. At the same time, it needs so much attention, and not like many of us are
Mhm.
aware, are taking good care of it and whatnot, right? So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about like what are some of the things that you have seen while doing the research or in your heart health journey, I would say.
Okay, so let me perhaps I can give you just a little more background of how I kind of got to that position. Um, I had initially started work at Texas Women's University, and I wanted to study the financial impact of male depression on a family. And I thought, well, whenever guys are screwed up, whenever we can't figure out things, usually somewhere in that orbit is a wife, a sister, auntie, a grandmother, a boss at work, but it's always, and I thought anecdotally, kind of there's an estrogen component to it that always messes up guys. We can never figure that out. So I thought, let me go to Texas Women's University and study this question. And it would be like, well, it's like being a fly in the other team's locker room. It's like I could just be there and study and learn from women uh, the ways that they see men, and then take that information back to help help good men be better. So after one semester into the program, I ended up having to have open heart surgery. And as you know, as a researcher, also, our pursuits are often dictated by our life experience. So, and heart disease had up to that point had kind of been a scourge in my family. I have lost over the years. I lost my father, um, three brothers, a couple of nephews, all to heart disease, all before the age of 62. And at the time of my surgery, I was 54 years old. So I said, let me switch gears. Let me change and study. If I can leave a legacy, I want to investigate this heart disease thing and see if I can help other men, other families deal more effectively with that. And so, um, my study at Texas Women's University, I did a dissertation, a study on African American cardiac peer support volunteers. And I wanted to find out why more men uh, don't help other men through that process of dealing with heart disease. Uh, and I was somewhat jealous by not jealous, but I noticed like if you look at everything around breast cancer and when you see Susan G. Coleman and you see just so much community support helping women deal with the just the devastation of breast cancer. But I didn't see that. I don't see anything like that for men. So that was what was motivating me to try and understand the question. And so before you can find out why men don't do something, you need to find out why they do something. So that's the study was to find out uh, why men volunteer to help others. And I worked with a group called Mended Hearts, which is the largest peer-to-peer um, support for heart patients. They've been around since the 1940s,
Oh,
and so that was the beginning of my research. And when we talk about at Hearts in the Family and why peer support is such a critical thing of helping people go through a disease that they're not familiar with, the best way that I like to say it is that um, the person who's been through that disease, they understand it better than the doctors.
right,
We have in this country, we have the best, what I call the best body mechanics in the world. There there are very few things that we can't do with the physicality of the human body, but very few of our surgeons have ever been on the operating end of the scalpel. They've never, they don't know what it feels like in many cases to get up out of the bed after a surgery, after, to recover from that process. And that's why being a peer supporter is so very important.
of course.
And so that's a little bit of where my study, how it started. And after I completed my dissertation work, I founded Hearts in the Family again, which is an online support vessel for heart men and their families. And as we know about heart disease and really any other uh, um, uh, serious disease, it doesn't just affect the person, it affects the family, it affects the community, and so thus Hearts and the Family.
Wow. So much respect to you and your research, sir, because in every community, I mean, there's, as you said, that peer support that is kind of lacking, and there is a huge gap because, as you said, that for other side, I'm like, as you gave the example of women like breast cancer and whatnot. There are groups we have seen that right around us as well, but regarding men, that is hardly covered. And then when you have taken this initiative, not just for the sake of study, but being there, as you said, from heart to heart, right?
Yes,
That
yes,
came from heart and from your experience as well, and that
hmm
that added extra value in it, right? So,
yes.
yeah, I not only appreciate but respect all your effort, and even today, the journey Dr. Mike is in helping so many people, right?
hmm hmm
That
And
would, yes, please go ahead.
and I was going to say just there are so many unique aspects to it. For example, I worked as a volunteer, and I would often go in and meet people who've just men, particularly men, but men and women. But when I would see a man who's just come through the heart surgery or they're needing to go through that process, and there's often just a sense of hopelessness, a fear, and they're trying to grapple with that, and a lot of times. One of the very first things I would say to the man in that bed is, and hopefully their spouse is in the room with their significant other, and I would first say to the man, listen, you can get through this. Look at me, I've been able to get through it, and you will recover from this. And then the next thing I would look directly at the man and said, but you need to take responsibility. And I would look over to his spouse and said, it's not her fault that you're here.
Right.
And and I would say to the wife, I'd say, and I don't he does not need to be mothered. He needs to take responsibility, because so often, as a mother yourself, you can't help but do that natural instinct of try and mother into that situation. And guys, look, we will fall into that we'll return to a little boy and we'll let you take all that burden, but it's up to us to fix that. And so a lot of times when talking with men, um, it needs to come from another man in order to really have credibility with a man. So I'll spend a great deal of time just kind of having some direct conversation with men, and so also one of the best things about being a peer support coach is it really does help to keep me compliant, because every time I see a person who's in that bed, I know that if I don't take my meds, if I don't do my exercises, if I don't take care of my wellness, then I'm going to be right back in that place. And so to the degree that I can prevent that, it helps to be among the community and cheering others on.
Sure.
And
When Dr. Mike, when we are going through this conversation and when it came of the word like mother, one thing I wanted to share, and that question just like popped in my head, was these days we are seeing many young people like under 50, like 30 to
mhm,
50. They are also suffering or dying through the
yes.
heart attack. And just last week, my son's friend in Canada, it was so
Mhm.
heartrending. He was 29 years old and
Um,
just married like 3 months ago. And he was in work. He was using the gym, and he was found dead there in gym.
mm,
And that was one of the things that whole week I couldn't get over this, and I cannot even imagine what's going to their parents,
mhm,
his newlywed wife. And he was doing workout, but
mhm.
not only his case, but many of the case, like these days I have heard many like under 50, like 30 to 44 or 45. And what do you think is the cause of that? Like I don't know, like, do you have any?
Well, first and foremost, to be respectful as we're talking in general terms, what we say here, do not take it as medical advice. Go
Right.
to your doctor.
Yes.
Um, and yes, we are finding that these sudden death, these sudden cardiac incidents, they do occur, and it's tragic because you think, how could this happen? And in many cases, there's probably some underlying condition that may have been giving some signals, but we did not necessarily recognize what it was. And um, again, if I can speak kind of in my own case, I was going to work one day and just got just a little kind of a tickle in my neck, and um, my job at the time was very stressful, and I had a boss who I thank him to this day all the time, because at the time I felt like he was kind of an asshole to me. Excuse me. But I realized that, you know what, I'm I had this pain and I'm gonna go and check it out myself. So on the way to work, I just went to the hospital, to the ER, and I said, I'm having some pain in my neck and maybe some chest pain, and they immediately rushed me in and ran through a battery of tests, and they found absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And they said, "Well, you look fine. I mean, there's nothing. We don't see anything. So we're going to send you to another doctor. So I went through this series of testing over the next 3 or 4 months, and uh, we did all the barrage of tests, and finally, I was with a cardiologist who repeated a nuclear stress test and treadmill and all these other tests. Couldn't find anything. And she says, Mr. Coleman, I don't find anything wrong with you. And I said, but doctor, as I'm talking to you right now, the pain in my chest is about a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10. So she said, okay, let's go in and do what we call in the an angioplasty, where they will go in and shoot dye inside of your heart. And that really is one of the truest measures to see what kind of blockage a person may have. And once they did that, they found that I had 3 of my arteries were almost 75% blocked.
Mhm.
So what that kind of would look like for most people was I would have been the kind of person who would have maybe gone and worked out after gone to the gym and worked out, or I would have come home, cut the grass, and then come right in and sat down at the table and checked out with a massive uh, heart incident. And so I say that first and foremost, whenever you feel out of touch, or you feel a little funny, it's very important that we advocate for ourselves and check things out. Get something checked out when you don't feel well.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah, as you
and
mentioned that even the doctor said that you look fine, you are fine, but you
yes,
in that extra step to no, come on, I know my body, right? So
yes,
that is, yeah, something really very eye-opening. Yeah.
yeah, and it's almost an insulting question because, well, what do I need to look like for you to take me serious? And so yeah, it's kind of a scary thing. But yes, my one of my family members who was doing boot camp training at a health club died from a massive heart attack, and he was, I mean, as fit as a fiddle. And sometimes these things happen, and again, I can't tell you why. In the case of the gentleman in Canada, but my heart goes out to their family. Um, uh, One of the other things I also know is that um, eh, stress, the amount of stress that we're operating under. That there was an interesting study that they did some carbon dating on some of the pharaohs from ancient Egypt. They went and actually did carbon dating in the body, and they were able to detect elements of heart disease. And and I thought, okay, well, they didn't have a McDonald's back then. They didn't have YouTube. They didn't have uh, some of the vices that we say are part of today.
Mhm.
But what they did have, what's always been consistent in the human dynamic, is they had stress. They've had stress, and stress. The stress it takes a toll on the body that we tend to underestimate, but it really is has serious consequences. So again, if you just think about that, heart disease existed long, has been a part of the human dynamic for a long time. And just want to mention that about stress.
Very, very helpful. And I'm sure that our audience who are watching us, listening to us, they are finding so many valuable information, and also the note to take accountability, take responsibility of their own health and take care of it, right? So that is one of the
Yes.
important things. So, Dr. Mike, what do you see that in present generation, as we talked about stress, and it is kind of consistent from that time till this day, so, what do you think that our young generation these days are kind of, what are some of the major challenges they are facing, in your opinion? Uh,
Well, yes, and I think we're kind of in a period where, particularly where men are, and that's a lot of my focus. Uh, we are in a period of trying to redefine what it means to be a man. What, whether it's um, um, whether it's an anti-woke thing, or it's a male masculinity, and that comes in so many different ways. But at just in talking to so many men now, one of the things I see as a challenge is learning to communicate, being able to talk with one another effectively. And uh, I remember teaching, just in teaching some of the classes, and again, it's just kind of speaking to what sometimes happens to men, young men in particular. Um, I was teaching a class at our alma mater at Texas Woman's, and I had a young lady come up and she says, Dr. Mike, my boyfriend, I just wish that he would just man up. I just wish that he would be that strong guy like my father. And I says, well, what do you mean exactly? Well, I just wish he would be a fighter and show
The
some
patient, right? That
yeah, show some aggression. And I thought, well, so you want that kind of um, tough guy. You want that to show up. You want to turn that on when you can turn it on when it's convenient for you. And I said, unfortunately, when you try and put a man inside of a box like that, what a man ought to be, you fail to look at the person who's in front of you. And I said, could be that your young man is struggling with something. Maybe he may be afraid of a situation and not quite know how to express that fear. And particularly for men, because we're not very good in verbal communication. We express ourselves through physical ways. And I said to the young lady, I said, more importantly, um, if you call for that kind of aggression in a man, you can't flip it on and off like a light switch. It's going to, yes, he may stand up and flex his muscles inside of a nightclub, or someplace that you have that romantic idea. But when you're at home, and he doesn't like something that you said, or you express your independence to him, he may turn around and show that same hostility. He may turn that against you. And I said, so it's very important for young ladies in that situation to have some dialogue, to allow a person to be who they are, um, and 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 also kind of recognize, for young men, um, uh, it's very important that we establish our masculinity, but also that we pay attention to the feminine side of our personality, and that means self-care. That means finding time to, um, whether it's going to listen to music, going to get a massage, whatever causes you to relax and tap into the other side of your personality. That's important for men to take time to take care of themselves. And for the guys that are listening on this call, women find you much more attractive when they see that you are taking care of yourself, and that you understand the importance of that, because then she knows that you're a well-rounded person.
you made me speechless at this moment, Dr. Mike. Yes, so many valuable nuggets that you are giving, sharing out
Mhm.
from right from the heart, right from the
Yes.
research and whatnot. So yes, and talking about the women or young girls or any women's expectation and men's pressure to fit themselves in that frame, right? That kind of
Yes.
create stress sometime, and we do not know how it compounds and burst one day kind of. So that's really something that we all, regardless of gender, need to be very mindful while communicating to our own partners, to our own sons and daughters, like everyone, right? That's
Yeah,
really important thing.
yes.
Yeah.
I, I was fascinated with some conversation and work that Dr. Allison Armstrong is doing in in relationships, and one of the things that she talks about is uh, the difference in men and women, and for example, like my wife, um, we I can't understand why she has to constantly straighten the pillows or constantly straighten something in the house. And it wasn't until I heard Alison Armstrong say that for a woman, it's like the pillow is talking to her. It's like I need to be straightened. I need to be. You need to come and take care of me. And until she does that, until she gets it right, it's never, it just will drive her crazy. And when I shared that with my wife, she started laughing because I said, honey, is that true? Do you, she goes, well, yes, and go straighten the pillow. And it's like, I said, oh, okay. Part of that conversation was um, when my wife would say, well, why didn't you take out the trash? And it's not that she wanted an answer.
Right.
In that moment, she doesn't want an answer. You
Right.
know, if you'll say that to your son, you don't want an answer. You want action. You want action right now. And uh, but for the guys, for us being logical, well, we'll stop and we'll think and we'll go. Well, the reason I didn't take out the trash is blah 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 blah, and wah is not not the response that needs to go on in that space. So
But
yeah,
yeah,
we
yeah, as you said, that communication is very much essential, right? Sometimes, I mean, we expect that he will understand me without a word, or she will understand me without word, but sometimes words are needed as much, right? So,
yes, because I'm listen, that we know biologically there's a difference between men and women, and as much as I want to think how and understand a woman, that's not my natural course of action. I taught an anger management class one time, and I often said that I was teaching a class, and I said, listen, men, if you can think of it like this, men are born with an antenna in our brain that tunes into an AM frequency. Okay. Women are born with an antenna that tunes into FM signals. Uh, or better yet, women learn to speak uh, in one language, and men are speaking another language. Through the course of our life, we learn a second language. So I will, in the course of my life, I will begin to study and learn the way that women talk, but it's not my native language. Same thing for women. They're going to learn the different things about a man. So when we find ourselves in stressful situations, find ourselves in a stressful situation, um, what do we typically do? And you'll see it in movies all the time. Uh, a person is speaking to someone who doesn't understand the language, and what do? We start raising our voice as if raising my voice is going to help that person understand a language that is not part part for them. And uh, so in anger management, we see oftentimes we see people just
right.
yelling at a person thinking, well, that's going to get the message through. No, it doesn't. It just creates more noise and more frustration.
Oh my God,
Um,
talking about that, I mean, I was kind of like reflecting on myself when I talk to my kids sometime, right? We as mother try to kind of make like, I don't know, point, sometimes raise
mhm.
whatnot. But yes, as you said, that totally different language sometimes, right? And not giving that space to understand that. And let's just rising the volume doesn't work. So that's a great example. I'm so much enjoying the conversation as much. Uh, you are giving us so many valuable lessons
Mhm.
there, and I appreciate that very much. One thing I was always wondering, and I wanted to ask because you wear multiple hats, you are expert in different fields, and you have your MBA as well. And one
Mhm.
thing, when we talk about men, when we talk about stress, when we talk about like entrepreneurship too, right? Because every time the financial aspect comes there, regardless.
Mhm.
So tell me or share us a little bit about like the present generation. I see like me being a researcher of entrepreneurship myself, I see many of the like young generation out there tilted towards entrepreneurship versus traditional like 9 to 5 job. And that
Mhm.
is sometimes, I mean, they are listening to their heart. They are happy doing what they want, but at the same time, their hours are from 9 to 5 to 9 to 9 or 9 to 3 a.m. or whatnot, right? So, and what are some of your thoughts regarding this? Like when we talk about like self-care, heart health, and like overall health, and what is your
So one of the things that's very important, again, having some boundaries and and when you're into your passion, it doesn't feel like work. It's just you're just driven. You have this what seems like an innate energy to just keep going and going. But it's still very important to recognize that you need to have some boundaries. You need to know when to step away from whatever you're doing. That you need to have someone around you, hopefully a spouse, significant other, that you can share some time with. And if you're in a family, don't forget that you need to invest that time in your family, because uh, the thing that we forget as entrepreneurs sometimes is the rest, whatever we're passionate about, the rest of the world didn't sign up for that. That's my passion, and so they won't understand that necessary drive that I've got. So it's important, um, to make sure that the people around you uh, get some of the attention that they deserve. Otherwise, you're going to get to the end of your journey. You may find some success in one area, but you'll be miserable because you've lost the people who love you along the way. So that's the first thing. Have those boundaries, um, and uh, recognize when you may need to give up or reassess, and come back at your passion in a different way. Classically, we always think, you know, I make an incredible oatmeal raisin cookie, and I make an incredible apple pie. I think it's the best apple pie in the world. But if I was to go and open up a bakery, uh, part of that success is having the people around me who can take care of the business, and make sure that I'm successful. Um, Also, gosh, I can never say this enough. Have a good accountant or financial person, uh, that that can keep you free and clear, uh, of the things that you need, to make sure that you're successful. Because what is it? Typically, 50% of most business within 3 years, 50% of new businesses will fail.
yes, oh my God.
And
And in those 3 years, I'm adding a little component from my research is that
mhm,
when I did on my women entrepreneurs, during those 3 years, 90% of the women-led business fail. And that was one of the
mhm,
finding. And that again came to the point, as you mentioned, that having someone who stand by you, who take care of other side of you, right? Because many times we or other people as entrepreneurs, they tend to do everything on themselves, right? They try to finish,
Mhm.
as you said, from like accounting to like anything and everything themselves, but that is taking toll out of them. And then yes, that is, yeah, definitely. So those three.
Yes. Uh, for example, in my journey, I um, have an MBA. I have a degree in political science, and I've got tremendous real world business experience. But when I launched Hearts in the Family, I quickly realized that I don't have the time to learn how to drive my web page, take care of that aspect of my business. So I outsource it,
Sure.
and it's important. You have to recognize what you're good at or what you're willing to be good at,
Exactly. Exactly.
and what you need to place in other places or put on other people.
Right.
Um, one of the things I also learned, kind of in working with Hearts in the Family and dealing with um, what I call the caregiver. So there's a heart patient and a caregiver, and I put out a message recently, um, to the to caregivers, and it says, kind of, look, when 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 you're the caregiver, when the family is not able or not getting what they need, give them permission to knock you in the head or whatever, to say, hey, look at me. Give them that permission. And you and I, we know that it's like when the alarm clock goes off in the morning. Sometimes you just want to throw it across the room. Well, we don't have alarm clocks anymore. When Alexa screams at us in the morning, or Siri screams at us in the morning, you just like, why? No, the alarm clock is there to make you aware of a situation, to wake you up to something. And so making sure that people around you have permission, um, to come to you and help you along the way. Um, my my wife, as we talk about families, my wife, one time she wanted to go into start a franchise, and of course I have an MBA, and I one of my jobs I worked as a franchise consultant for several years, so I understood very well that world. And she goes, well, Mike, I want to let's go and start a business together. And I told her no. And first, it's never good just to tell your wife no like that, because they will extract a certain amount of pain from you. But she was very angry at me. She was like, I don't understand why you wouldn't support me. I don't understand. I said, for one very simple reason. I know operations, I know business very well, but when the time comes where a decision has to be made about spending money, and if I was to say, no, that's not a good business decision because I'm your husband, you would end up wanting to discount that, or kind of blow that off. And that's not good for a business situation. So I said, for you and I to go into business together, we would end up at each other's throats. And it took about 2 years for her to finally accept what I was saying. I mean, she kind of held it against me for a while. And then I also, when she did start her business, I would say, well, um, let me look at your books. It's okay for us to talk about your business. And she would say, well, you don't want to be a part of it before. Why do you want to be a part of it now? I said, the difference is, unlike anybody else that you're going to hire, I have a real vested interest in your success, because that means that we as a family unit are going to be successful.
Definitely.
I may not be in that room with you,
Yeah. And
but
as you
and
said
so
that, sorry,
yeah.
I really appreciated you like mentioning that even though it was hard at first, right? If
Hmm.
if my husband had said that to me, I would be sad. I would take it to my heart for some time. But later
Yes.
on, as you mentioned that, I mean, once you realized it, right? Because sometimes having that clear conversation is very much necessary. And then, yeah,
Hmm.
just wanted
Hmm.
to add that part because when I put myself in her shoes at that time, and how would I think? And later, so you bought flowers for her later.
Yes, 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 and for a while, there were plenty of dinners, and it did take a while to kind of get through that, but again, it's important. Yeah.
You, as coming from that, like having so much experience on that side,
Hmm.
consulting many people, helping many people. So years of experience was the your expression, right? When you mentioned that to your wife. And sometimes, like being personal, sometimes it's hard for us to take that, but you were not only husband, but as a business consultant at that time. And yeah, that was really great example. Yeah.
And one of the things I learned on the flip side of it is that um, my wife, I had to learn from her this a very important lesson. We have in life we have blind spots, and it's a blind spot because I can't see it. Right, I'm going down the road of life, and I can't see what's around the corner. But my partner, my life partner, can see it from a different perspective than I can. And I have to be willing to trust that insight. I have to be willing to hear that,
Right.
because if I don't, I'm going to take myself and us into harm's way.
Yeah,
And so it's very important that you have those people who you can trust, who will again sometimes give you that hard information that you have to have.
definitely. And just adding one more, I don't know, word on this is having someone with vested interest, as you said, or mentor, because even in my research, many of the business fail in first 3 years, not having someone who
Hmm.
trust them, right?
Hmm.
And then and as mentor, as you are, like as someone who really cares, someone who really wishes for the best of the person. So that is one of thing. And yeah, both you for your wife and your wife having you both are very, I mean, fortunate, I would say. Yeah. Dr. Mike, the conversation is going so great, and I'm learning so many things from you, like our audience, but we are almost to the end of this journey today.
Oh
So,
my goodness, time went so fast.
yeah. So, what is one message that you want to give to the uh, present generation regarding self-care, heart health, and to the families also?
So in terms of course, again, heart disease is the number one killer throughout the world.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter your race, doesn't matter your sex. Heart disease is the number one killer. When we talk about how many people died during the pandemic, almost a million people, and yet we looked at the numbers a year or two later, and it's like heart disease is like, oh, okay, pandemic, yeah, you're not welcome to the neighborhood, but I'm still I'm still the thing that's going to take so many people out in this world. So heart disease is nothing to joke about, and it's important that you know your family history. Um, it's important that people get regular checkups. Recognize also the impact that stress has upon you. Um, there are tremendous online resources and communities that can talk about almost any kind of condition related to the heart. I talk often about mended hearts, and again, I love mended hearts because not only does it talk about people at the kind of the end of life, we talk about adults with heart disease,
Right.
but heart disease at birth, children with heart disease is just a whole different animal in terms of the kind of care that's required. And oftentimes when a child, doctor, is when you have a child, you're a new couple, and a child has some kind of medical defect. that oftentimes the stress that brings to a family oftentimes will split that family apart. They can't uh, he can't handle it, or she can't handle it, and the family breaks apart because of a medical condition. So again, I give a shout out to Little Mended Hearts for the work they do in helping families with children dealing with heart disease, and also to the American Heart Association, the granddaddy of them all in terms of helping people. Heart disease, uh, heart disease will affect um, so many people in our lives. So if I can say one thing and one thing only, when that comes into your life, don't suffer in silence. Do not suffer in silence. Get the help that you need. And if I can help in any way at all, reach out to me at heartsinthefamily.com. Please, or any number of the other resources that I've mentioned. And as a family scientist, um, the family, the family unit, is the first corporation that we're ever exposed to, right? It's the first organization that we're ever exposed to, and we learn so many things about business through that corporation, that corporate structure of a family. And so, to the entrepreneurs, understand how you exist in within that corporation, your family.
Thank you for that. And I was going to ask how they can connect with you, and you have given that. And I would like to share that in our YouTube. I would share the link as well. So those people who want to connect to you, who have some questions to you, they can connect to you through that as well. So thank you so very much. And yes, today's Tea Talk, it has been very, very informative and very beneficial, not only to me, but for everyone who has been watching us, listening to us. And thank you for that. So, uh, before I let you go, give me one of the book that impacted you so much.
A book that has impacted me. Yes. Okay. Most recently, there's a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy, which came out about 20 years ago. It's written by Dr. Robert Glover, who's also an alum of Texas Women's University.
Wow.
And for the men, for men, actually for men and women, for women who are trying to understand this guy who has passive aggressive tendencies, who uh, just sometimes is a jerk. Uh, no More Mr. Nice Guy is a cornerstone a cornerstone book that you need to read. So I would recommend that No More Mr. Nice Guy.
I'm glad I asked. Definitely, I'll add that in my reading list. Thank you so very much for your time and for all the information. And it's an honor having you in this podcast today.
And as far as tea, green tea, right? Green tea, yes.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
Bye.